Good morning. We have a little history lesson today. Your first history lesson back after a few days off, and some fun snow days, hopefully, for all of you, although probably many of you just stayed inside the whole time and got to watch it from outside, or got to watch what was happening outside from inside your warm home, hopefully. Let's begin reading chapter 5 in our history book today. This one is called After the Ancestral Pueblo. So we learned about the Ancestral Pueblo last week. We spent basically the whole week talking about that one chapter, drawing that out. I want to review that a little bit before we start chapter 5. So chapter 4, Ancestral Pueblo and Mound Builders, we heard about the cliff dwellers who lived in the area of the Four Corners, so Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona. There were farmers, and they had really a developed civilization there. And we heard about the mound builders as well. And remember that no one knows exactly why the Ancestral Pueblo left. It's possible that it's because the weather changed and they didn't have any good farmland anymore. We'll be learning a little bit more about connection to that with Farmer Boy, our new novel, as we continue reading that. So you'll find out more about how the weather affects farming. So here is chapter 5, After the Ancestral Pueblo. Now, the Pueblo. Native people and scientists agree that the descendants of the Ancestral Pueblo cliff dwellers included the Pueblo. Today, these people live in the American Southwest. Now, in Spanish, the word pueblo means village. In the 1500s and 1600s, the first Spanish explorers arrived in the Southwest. There they met the native people. The Spanish named these people for the villages where they had lived and farmed for hundreds, even thousands of years. Pueblo villages look like they're modeled after Ancestral Pueblo cliff dwellings. Like the Ancestral Pueblo, the Pueblo built apartment-style homes out of adobe bricks. This is one reason scientists feel certain that the Pueblo people are related to the ancient Ancestral Pueblo cliff dwellers. So it may seem obvious that they would be related because of the name, but the name didn't really happen until later. But they've decided that even though those Ancestral Pueblo, we don't know what happened to them, the people eventually became these Pueblo people, at least some of them, probably. And the buildings are pretty similar to what we saw before. One group named the Hopi built their villages on the tops of mesas for protection from enemy attacks. Mesa is Spanish for table, and mesas in nature are kind of like a natural table built up. Not quite a hill, it's very flat, but a little bit elevated. Oh, look at this. Here's the Hopi houses built with different levels connected by ladders. How cool. Here's someone weaving, some kids playing. We've got lots of jars. Some weaving that might look like what you've done for your extra craft if you did that. Okay, next it says 19 Pueblo villages still exist. They can be found on the high mesas in the deep canyons and along the river valleys of New Mexico. I recently drove through Mexico and saw mesas everywhere. Didn't see any villages from where I was. However, they're all over the place, these mesas. All Pueblo villages share many traditions passed down from their ancestors, but each separate village also has its own special customs. And here mesa says a Spanish word for table, or it comes from that. It is a rocky, flat-topped hill. Now, the Hopi Indians are Pueblo people. They stayed in the high desert or on the plateau areas of Arizona, just like their ancestors. They built villages on the high mesas. There they grew corn, squash, beans, and melons. The word Hopi comes from a phrase that means the peaceful people. Sounds like hope, right? Today, the Hopi live mostly in northeastern Arizona. Now, the Zuni are also Pueblo. They live in the western part of New Mexico. The Zuni do not share a language with the other Pueblo people. Let's take a look at a map just so you can get an idea of where we are talking about Arizona and New Mexico. Okay, so here is, oh, there's a Hopi reservation that came up on Google Maps. So here's the four corners between Arizona, New Mexico, here's Colorado, and Utah. So this was the whole area we were talking about with the ancestral Pueblo. And now we're seeing that the Hopi lived in northeastern Arizona. You know what part of Arizona that would be if it's northeastern? Right, north is this way, east is this way. So northeastern is right here where it says Navajo Nation. If we zoom in, there's still this Hopi reservation, which means it's land set aside for some of these Native American tribes that still exist today. Now, the Zuni Native Americans lived in the western part of New Mexico. So where's the western part? That's right. Do you see a Zuni reservation? Good, right here. Here's a Zuni reservation. So those are, once again, areas set aside for these Native Americans to live all together. Now the Navajo, which you probably already saw quite a bit about the Navajo on that map as well. So the Navajo, for tens of thousands of years, groups of Native Americans have migrated, which means that they've moved from one place to another. Some moved to follow game, which is animals that are hunted for sport or for food. Now, some moved because the climate changed. Some moved to find more or better land. Others were driven away by enemies. Whenever people move, they bring some things with them. They leave other things behind. Now, the Navajo migrated from northern Canada to the southwest. Let's take a look at the map again for that. They went from northern Canada to the southwest. All right, let's see this journey. So the Navajo were all the way up in northern Canada, way up here. And over probably hundreds of years, they started traveling down, migrating, trying to find what kind of land they needed to be in, possibly finding something based off of the animal supply that's there, but also it could be based off of the land itself, wanting to find good farmland. So they traveled all the way south here to the southwest. This is the part of the United States called just the Southwest in general. Okay, let's go back. Now, in their language, they call themselves Dana, meaning the people. The Navajo language links them to their ancestors in Alaska and Canada. Perhaps the Navajo are directly related to the hunter-gatherers who lived in Beringia many thousands of years ago. The Navajo who came to the southwest from Canada fought with the Pueblo who had lived in the southwest for thousands of years. But the Navajo also learned from the Pueblo. They learned how to survive in the harsh climate of the high desert. For example, the Navajo often used adobe to build their homes. But they built individual domed houses in small scattered groups rather than in villages. Now, the Spanish first brought sheep to the Southwest in the 1600s. As a result, raising sheep became a big part of the Navajo way of life. The Navajo became more settled. They used fleece from their sheep to spin wool and weave blankets and rugs, similar to what some of you did on Thursday, or maybe over the weekend. Still known for their weaving skills, today, the Navajo make up the largest Native American nation in the United States. Wow, so the largest in the country. Known for their weaving. You'll have a little assignment to do based off of that as well. Hopefully you have done actual weaving, but we're also going to do a drawing, kind of like the rugs that they weave. So let's see the Hopi reservations, Zuni reservation in comparison to the Navajo Nation and Navajo Nation off-reservation trust land. So this is a huge section of Arizona and New Mexico reserved for these Navajo Native American tribes that are still left. Okay. Now, like the Navajo, the Apache also migrated from northern Canada to the southwest. They traveled along the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. Okay, let's see the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. Where are the Rocky Mountains? Do you know? They run through Colorado primarily. We can see right here. Will they be called out? No. I guess they don't say anything for mountain ranges. Let's see a satellite image. Oh, now we can see the range better. Okay, so they traveled on this eastern part over here of the Rocky Mountains. Now, Apache territory covered parts of present-day Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and northern Mexico. Okay, so as they traveled south, they're a little bit further east than the Hopi and Navajo and Zuni were. So they're traveling along here, going into Texas and Mexico, among other places. The Apache hunted and traded. Later, after the Spanish brought horses to America, the Apache learned how to ride the new animals. Horses made it easier for the Apache to hunt and to raid rival Navajo villages, as well as attacking Spanish forts. So there are some people on horseback. The Spanish introduced horses to the Americas, and the Apache learned to use these new animals. They hunted on horseback. They used buffalo hides to make teepees as well. Now, the Comanche were the only Native Americans more powerful than the Apache. The Comanche successfully gained Apache land and pushed the Apache further west. Because of this, the Apache finally had to make peace with their enemies, the Spaniards. They needed Spanish protection from the Comanche. On a hot summer's day in the 1700s, 4 Apache chiefs and their followers met with Spanish missionaries in San Antonio, Texas. There, the Apache turned over their weapons. In a ceremony of peace, the Apache and the Europeans buried the hatchet. This is a phrase that means they agreed to stop fighting with each other. Buried the hatchet. Can you imagine actually physically burying any type of weapon so that you're not going to use it against each other anymore? There's going to be no more fighting between these two groups. So we still use the expression bury the hatchet when we agree to stop arguing with someone. Unfortunately, the hatchet wasn't really buried. Not all of the Apache made peace, nor did the Europeans or their descendants leave them alone. All through the 1800s, the Apache were at war with other Native Americans and with various settlers. They fought against the Spaniards, the Mexicans, and finally the Americans. One of the most famous Apache leaders was Geronimo, who fought to save his people's land. Today, several Apache groups live in the southwestern United States, and the Comanche mostly live in Oklahoma. Okay, so several tribes all here in the southwest of the United States. So we've got, once again, the Hopis, Zunis, Navajo. Let's see if we can spot where the Apache and Comanche would be. So Comanche are the ones mainly in Oklahoma. I don't see any reservations for them, but there are a lot of other Native American reservations. You might see Cherokee Nation, Osage, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskegee, or Creek. We'll learn more about many of these later on in our study. Okay, boys and girls, that's all for our chapter today. If any of you would like to get a head start on your notes, I've made that available already since there's quite a lot of notes just to make sure that you've got a little bit of something on each of these tribes. So feel free to get a head start on that. And if you want also to get a head start on a little art assignment where you create your own rug design, So feel free to do that if you've got extra time today. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.